Welcome to boot camp. Welcome to MPB's boot camp for Algebra 1. We are here to review everything that we've learned in our Algebra 1 sessions. So let's go ahead and get started with this boot camp because we really want to dive into what some of these questions will look like. So here we go. First one we want to look at is to remember that we are looking at our N-Q.1, 2, and 3 standards. We're going to look at some MAAP questions and some in-depth questions to get ready for that end-of-year test. So always remember the power of studying helps, no matter what. So our first question reads, the graph represents the temperature change over a period on a single day. Which unit would be appropriate for the rate of change in this graph? So we have to remember that our rate of change is also considered slope. So we have rise over run. Rise on our y values, run on our x values. So we're rising and we're running. So I have temperature over time, which would be degrees over hours. So my answer would be C. So now that we've kind of gotten into what we're doing for this boot camp, I'm going to pull up a question. I'm going to give you a few minutes if you need to pause the video to answer the question, and then I'm going to explain it to you. And that's what we'll do in this boot camp lessons is give you time to work the problem, me work the problem. Here we go. Pizza anyone. A teacher plans to buy pizza for her 25 students, and she wants each student to get at least one piece of pizza. Each pizza costs $7, and there are many toppings to choose from. Which quantity would be most useful in determining how many pizzas the teacher should buy? 1, number of pieces per pizza. 2, number of toppings. 3, price per piece of pizza. And 4, price per pizza. Well, if I need to make sure that I have enough slices for all of my students, then I need to know the number of slices on each pizza. So I would say number of pieces per pizza. That's what I would say my answer is. Good job. All right, here's our next one. Make sure that you know about your roundings when dealing with measurements. We got to make sure. All right, effective measuring techniques. Germain measures the dimensions of a rectangle to the nearest centimeter. The measure of the length of the rectangle is 25 centimeters and the width of the rectangle is 20 centimeters. Which two measures could be the actual area of the rectangle? So we know that we're looking for area. The area of a rectangle equals length times my width. So it tells me that the length is 25 centimeters and the width is 20 centimeters. So I've got 25 times 20. That is a calculator skill that we've learned. So I put that in my calculator and I get 500. Well, that is not my numbers that are part of my choices. So it asked me which two could be the actual area. So if 500 is the answer that I got, multiplying 25 times 20, I would say I could go 20 below it and I could go 20 above. And that's how I could look at this type of problem, get the answer, and then pick from our number choices. Good job. All right, let's look at our next one. Tape measure. Using a tape measure to the nearest tenth of an inch, Kevin measured his own height to be 65.8 inches. Kevin's sister is 2/3 as tall as Kevin. What is Kevin's sister's height in inches to the appropriate level of accuracy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take how much Kevin measures and I'm going to multiply it by my 2/3, and that will give me how tall Kevin's sister is. So when I multiply that, I get 43.86666. Now, this problem tells us how we should answer this question. Measure to the nearest tenth. That is 1 decimal. So I've got 43 point, this is my tenth. My 6 tells me I'm going to round up. So I have 43.9 inches. That is how we are using that rounding. Good job. sig figs or significant digits. We've all gone over this. How many significant digits are in the number 451 100ths? So I count 1, 2, 3 to the left of the decimal. And then since I have zeros and a number that's more than 0 between them, I do count those zeros of 1, 2, 3. So I have 6 significant digits. Good job. Algebraic terms of an expression. Shelley must write down the algebraic terms of the expression written on the right. What's the correct answer? So our problem reads 20a to the third b to the second plus 32a squared b minus 15a plus 11. We need to write down the algebraic terms. So remember, this is a term, this is a term, this is a term, and this is a term. Here's my first term, my second term, my third term. So I know it can't be D. I have my first term, my second term, my third term, and my fourth term. So I know my answer is C. Now you're probably saying, Ms. Killen, why didn't you choose A or B to start with? Because I don't have any of my variables in those first two options. And to be a part of my term, I have variables. So that's why I began with the bottom two, because they did have the variables. But that was a good question. All right. Rational numbers. Which two expressions represent a rational number? Now this is straight calculator skill. I am putting each one of these options in my calculator and getting an answer. Then I go to my math button and go down to fraction. If my answer can be turned into a fraction, it's what? It's rational. If it cannot be turned into a fraction, it's irrational. It wants rational numbers. So which two expressions can be rational numbers? And for this, we have just this one. And you may say that all others are irrational. And that would be my other option. So you may have where you have possible, and then you may have where you have to write in all are irrational, or this one's irrational, or this one's not irrational. So it depends on how your answer choices are presented, depending on how you would give that answer. Okay? Equivalent. Which expression is equivalent to 6y squared plus 4y minus y plus 3 squared plus 5? So for this one, I would put this into Desmos. Once I plug this into Desmos, you're probably saying, Ms. Killen, I can't do it as a y, can I? No, but with Desmos, we could always change my y's to x's. And then once I have my question in Desmos, I would put each one of my answer choices in Desmos. Remember, if they're equivalent, they are going to graph right on top of each other. So I put my overall question in, and then I put each one of these answer choices in, and which one did you get? Yes, you did. You got number 1. It lied right on top of the other one. Good job. Well, that was our first lesson of boot camp. I want to make sure that you are really looking at the different questions that we have, and I want to make sure that you are looking at those notes that you've taken in Algebra 1 to make sure that you've got all the processes and the steps. So, as always, from MPB, have a great day.